In the heart of America, where politics often feels like a battleground between ideals and reality, one young woman emerged as a force Democrats never saw coming: Karoline Leavitt. For years, the Democratic Party had comfortably pushed its progressive agenda, confident that the younger generation was on their side. They believed that conservatives had lost their grip on the youth, that Gen Z and millennials had fully embraced liberal ideologies. But then, Karoline happened. At just 26 years old, she was shattering every stereotype the left had carefully crafted. A bold, fearless, and unapologetically conservative voice, she wasn't just another Republican candidate. She was a movement. Her rise wasn't just about politics. It was about defiance. She represented everything that sent shivers down the spines of Democratic leaders: a young, intelligent, and articulate conservative woman. A candidate who resonated with both older Republicans and disillusioned young voters tired of the left's narratives. Someone unafraid to call out media bias, big government overreach, and progressive hypocrisy. But her journey to the national stage wasn't easy. The left-wing media mocked her, dismissed her, and labeled her as an extremist. They believed she would never gain traction, that she would crumble under pressure. But what they didn't realize was that Karoline wasn't playing by their rules. She wasn't trying to fit into their narrative. She was rewriting it. And that's when things really got interesting. Karoline Leavitt wasn't just another conservative voice. She was a direct threat to the Democratic stronghold on young voters, and the establishment knew it. From the moment she stepped onto the national stage, the attacks began. The mainstream media painted her as too extreme, too young, and too inexperienced. Liberal pundits scoffed at the idea that a 26-year-old woman could shake up Washington, D.C., but Karoline didn't flinch. She knew exactly what she was up against: a system designed to silence conservatives, especially young ones. For years, Democrats had convinced themselves that Gen Z and millennials were fully aligned with their progressive agenda. But Karoline's growing popularity exposed a truth they refused to acknowledge. Many young Americans were rejecting big government policies, media manipulation, and radical leftist ideologies. Her message was simple but powerful: less government, more freedom. Protect free speech, stop media bias, strong borders, strong economy. And young voters were listening. At rallies, college campuses, and town halls, Karoline didn't just talk, she connected. She understood the frustration of Americans who felt abandoned by both the government and the media. Unlike career politicians, she spoke with conviction, not scripted talking points. And that's what made her dangerous. Social media platforms mysteriously throttled her reach. Leftist commentators launched smear campaigns. Political insiders poured millions into stopping her movement. But Karoline did what few Republicans before her had dared to do. She fought back. Instead of apologizing or toning down her message, she doubled down. She went on liberal networks and confronted biased hosts head-on. She used the very platforms that tried to silence her to amplify her message even louder. And it worked. What was once a long-shot candidacy became a political wildfire. Suddenly, the Democrats weren't just dealing with another conservative candidate. They were dealing with a movement. The political battlefield was heating up. Karoline Leavitt was no longer just a rising star. She was a major threat. Every debate, every speech, every interview only made her stronger. She wasn't afraid to call out hypocrisy, expose corruption, and challenge the radical left. And people, especially young voters, were taking notice. But the moment that truly sent shockwaves through Washington came during a nationally televised debate. Her opponent, a seasoned Democratic incumbent, stood across from her, confident and smug. The media had hyped him up as the experienced leader, someone who would put Karoline in her place. But the moment she took the stage, everything changed. The moderator, clearly leaning left, threw a loaded question at her. "Ms. Leavitt, as a young conservative, don't you think your views are outdated? Shouldn't we embrace progressive policies that align with modern America?" The audience went silent. It was a trap. But Karoline didn't hesitate. She leaned forward, looked straight into the camera, and responded, "Outdated? You mean like believing in free speech? Like standing up for law and order? Like defending the rights of parents to raise their kids without government interference? If that's outdated, then I guess millions of Americans are outdated too." The crowd erupted. The moderator stuttered. Her opponent shifted uncomfortably. And just like that, the narrative flipped. She wasn't just a young conservative candidate anymore. She was the voice of a generation that Washington had ignored for too long. The Democrats' nightmare becomes reality. That debate clip went viral overnight. Millions of Americans, young and old, saw something they hadn't seen in a long time. A conservative leader who wasn't afraid. Thousands of young voters switched their support overnight. Her fundraising skyrocketed. Even left-leaning media outlets had to admit Karoline Leavitt was a force to be reckoned with. The Democratic Party, which had spent years assuming young people belonged to them, was now watching their support crumble in real time. They had dreaded this moment. And now it was here. After the debate, everything changed. Karoline Leavitt was no longer just a candidate. She was a symbol of defiance, a leader of a new conservative revolution. The Democrats had underestimated her. The media had tried to silence her, and the establishment had fought to keep her out. But they had failed. Her message spread like wildfire, especially among young voters who had been searching for an alternative to the left's empty promises. She wasn't just talking about change. She was making it happen. For decades, the Democrats had relied on one strategy: control the narrative, control the youth, and secure their votes. But Karoline was proof that this grip was slipping. Young conservatives were louder and prouder than ever before. Independents, fed up with progressive overreach, started shifting right. Even some Democrats, frustrated with their party's failures, began questioning everything. The numbers were undeniable. Polls showed a historic rise in young conservative engagement. The Republican Party was gaining traction where it never had before. The media scrambled to counter her success. Smear articles flooded the internet, false accusations surfaced, and hit pieces dominated the news cycle. But none of it worked. Because Karoline Leavitt had done what the Democrats feared most, she had exposed their illusion of control. On election night, as the results rolled in, one thing became clear. A movement had been born. Whether she won or lost, Karoline Leavitt had changed the game forever. She had shattered the myth that young people belonged to the left. She had proven that conservatism wasn't fading, it was rising. And she had sent a message to Washington. The new generation isn't here to play by your rules. We're here to take America back. This was just the beginning.